Okay, so we might get started. A very warm welcome to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this evening as we mark the start of the Irish Foster Care Association's Fostering Awareness Week 2024 with our It Takes a Village celebrating foster care in communities panel discussion. My name is Roisin Clark. I'm CEO of the Irish Foster Care Association and delighted to be with you here this evening. Fostering Awareness Week is IFCA's annual national campaign to raise awareness and understanding of foster care in Ireland. Our theme for 2024, Growing Hope, Fostering the Future, seeks to highlight and recognise the positive impact a foster care placement can have in a child or a young person's life, the contribution made by foster carers all over the country, and how our communities can all play a role in supporting foster care. The support of peers and other foster carers is so important and makes not just the foster carer's journey easier, but the child's too. This can and does extend to the many individuals who play a role in a child or young person's life. Their coach, their teacher, their social work team, youth workers, in a collective response to the children who need our support and the foster carers who care for them. This diversity is reflected on our panel joining us this evening, and I really look forward to hearing their insights and perspective. This evening's session will be moderated by a great friend of IFCA, Dr. Danielle Douglas. Danielle has been a lecturer in social care in the School of Humanities and Waterford Institute of Technology since 2008. She holds a BA in Applied Social Studies from WIT, an MA by research with a focus on resilience, outcomes and foster care from WIT, and a PhD in Children and Youth Studies with a focus on identities and socio-spatial influences from UCD. Danielle's research interests include vulnerable children and young people and their families, children's geographies, identity and selfhood. Her research has included a diverse range of creative methodologies, including photo methodology and narrative inquiry. Danielle has experience as a relative foster carer and has facilitated training to foster carers, social workers, care experienced young people, and other stakeholders at national and international level. She was elected as the youngest and first care experienced president of the International Foster Care Organisation in 2017 and held the role for 3 years. She was co-host of their 2014 International Conference, and she was also a core group founding member of Power for Youth, a European peer support network for care experienced young people. Danielle has been a member of quality assurance committees for the assessment of foster carers for various organisations in Ireland, and she's been a member of TUSLA's Research Advisory Group since 2016. Danielle, thank you very much for moderating our session this evening. Danielle will be joined by our panellists, Siobhan O'Dwyer, Mike Walsh, Maureen Gillespie, Maria O'Connell, Alan Costello, and Shauna Cunningham. And I thank you all for giving them your time and your expertise this evening. So just to put some context on this year's theme for Fostering Awareness Week, Growing Hope and Fostering the Future. We have surveyed our members ahead of Fostering Awareness Week to get a sense of their experience of the value and the impact of wider supports in the community. And 48% of our members said that the support of their community in their fostering role was very important. 62% said it was very important for their foster child, and over 3/4 said that taking part in community groups and activities has helped them and their family in their fostering journey. It's a striking response, and I think one that really highlights the benefit of a collective response to supporting foster care and the importance of interconnectedness in our communities. We're also delighted to be able to capture some stories from our foster carers, and we got some fantastic examples of what it looks like when communities work together to support foster care. And I'd like to share some of those with you now. The support we as foster carers have had from our family, friends and wider community is the reason behind our success and long-term fostering. They say it takes a village to rear a child, and our rural village has lived up to this statement. Friends and neighbours are wonderful allies in our efforts to rear our foster children. Many give up their privacy by allowing Garda vetting, so we can let our girls have lifts, play dates and school pickups with them, and we are very grateful to our community. My older foster child is involved in a local Special Olympics club, which gave him support and provided a social life and a sport he can compete in, built up his confidence, a sense of belonging in the community. My younger foster child will be also joining the club. In turn, it's helped me to have support from other families in the world of special needs. We can call on each other for help or a chat and cuppa during the difficult times too. I became a volunteer in the club, and it gave me an outlet when the boys are in school. We all benefit from the ripple effect that surrounds us. But we also wanted to know, what can we do better? And these are some of the responses that we received. An understanding from community groups on the non-judgment of behaviours children have from past trauma really helps. Joining groups mid-year or missing out on weekly trainings, games, etc. because of access visits. The community has been no help to our current foster child. They feel alienated because of their sexuality and background. And finally, by being accepting, inclusive, and non-judgmental. So some work to do yet. I look forward to hearing from our panelists this evening and exploring how we can all pull together in support of foster families in our communities. But just some housekeeping briefly before we proceed. The session will be recorded and we'll be capturing questions and comments through the Q&A function. You can submit these over the course of the session, and we will have some time constraints, but we'll absolutely do our best to answer as many before we close. But please be assured that all questions will be noted, and you are more than welcome to reach out to us following the panel session if you wish. Okay, so thank you very much. And now over to Dr. Danielle Douglas, our moderator for this evening.
Thank you so much, Roisin. Thank you for that really lovely introduction. It's an absolute honour to be your moderator this evening. We have a really special panel of speakers. I was just looking at the bios and I'm just so blown away and impressed by all of the speakers and the diverse range that you have put together. So thank you to yourself and Catherine and Bridget and Sharon and all at IFCA for all the work that you do, I suppose, first of all, for foster carers, but for this session this evening as well. So it's an honour to be with you this evening. I suppose just before we begin, I just wanted to say a couple of words around the theme as well and my own perspective on it. I think, you know, it takes a village to raise a child has been an old adage for a long time. And it's something that I think, in fairness, the state has always tried to build into the practice. But what I'm seeing now in my own research and my own experience working with foster carers is that, and it's a really hopeful, positive step forward, is that we are starting to think outside of the box in terms of who are the villagers that we can draw on and that we should be drawing from in terms of supporting birth families, foster families, children in care. So we're stepping away from just the traditional, you know, who are the family members around the family, you know, to can offer support, to like those lovely quotes that we saw, who are the community groups, what creative activities or clubs can we bring in here. And I think that's really, really special. So I was delighted to see that some of the speakers this evening are going to address some creative, bringing space into the those of you who've seen me speak before know I love talking about space and the impact of physical and relational space for children in care. It's so important. So I love the theme of your session tonight. I think it takes a village. The village model recognizes the importance of social connections for children and their carers. And we know that we can't pour from an empty cup. I'm sure a lot of the participants who have logged on this evening and who have dinners going on in the background and homework, and as we were saying before we started, you know, the technological devices there, we'll try and keep going and keep them entertained. So thank you. And I am very much looking forward to hearing from the people in our village this evening who are going to share with us their experiences and their insights in terms of children in foster care. So the way we are going to run it, just for the participants' information, is a mixture of some of the speakers will give a presentation, and we may or may not have time for questions once they're finished. And other speakers may wish to just say a few words about who they are and where they're from, and then we'll have a kind of a to and fro discussion that way. And as Roisin has already said, please do feel free to put any questions that you have into the question and answers session, and we'll be able to address as many of those as possible at the end. So just before we go to our first speaker, I thought it would be nice to kind of see where people are logging in from around the country. So if you have access to the question and answer box, if you wouldn't mind just quickly putting in there what part of the country you are from and maybe what your affiliation to foster care is, just so we can get a sense of who's in the room, because I know webinars are different. You can't really see who's on. So I'll just see if I can access that. So we have Kilkenny. Now you see the Waterford in me wants to celebrate that, but we have Wicklow, Kilkenny again. Oh, hi Janice, lovely. Dublin, great. Laois, foster parents to 4-year-old twins. Wow, amazing. You're very welcome. Mayo, Donegal, beautiful. Some supporters here for youth advocates. Mayo, Kerry, wow. So we really do have a lovely spread from around the country. Cork, Tala, hi Anne, Wexford, Meath, County Limerick, Westmeath. Let's see who else. Carlow, lovely. Limerick, foster carers, lots of foster carers on this evening, which is absolutely fantastic. Dublin, hi Sive, how are you? Kildare, great, lovely. A foster carer to 3 children, one who has autism. So that'll be really interesting. I think some of the speakers might be addressing that as well this evening. Okay, so thank you all for doing that. We know that the Q&A box works as well, which is great. So again, you're all very, very welcome, and we will start with our first speaker. That's okay. So I'll introduce the speakers, and then they'll have 10 minutes each to give a quick overview of the work that they do. And as agreed with the speakers, I will interject after 10 minutes because I know that people are very passionate and they would keep talking all evening. So the first speaker we have is Siobhan O'Dwyer. Siobhan is CEO of Youth Advocates Programme Ireland. Siobhan qualified from Trinity College Dublin as a social worker in 1988. She has previously worked as a senior manager and social worker in London, Dublin and Belfast. And during her career, Siobhan has worked with children and families in the community, voluntary and statutory sector. Siobhan was appointed as CEO of Youth Advocates Programme Ireland in 2008, and in 2009 oversaw the setting up of YAP Ireland as a registered charity managed by a board of directors. So without further ado, I'll hand over to you, Siobhan, and thank you so much for being here with us this evening.
Hi, everybody. I'm afraid that aged me greatly, Danielle, but anyway, what can I do? Anyway, look, it's lovely to be here, and thank you so much to Catherine and Roisin for inviting me. I suppose the theme is really important for the work that youth advocate programs do, and I guess it fits very well with our model and our way of working. So just to say a little bit about YAP, YAP Ireland. So we're a strengths-based, needs-led model. We are unique in that we train and employ community-based advocates to work with young people and families in the community. So I suppose the adage that it takes a village to raise a child, and having a wraparound approach is very much where YAP comes from. And I suppose the needs-led piece is really important for all the young people and families that we work with, in that we start off from the basis of what do you need and how can we help? How do we galvanize support around a young person and their family? Probably about 60% of the young people we work with are at home. So it's a preventive model to try and maintain children at home as much as possible. But that means that another 40% are actually in the care system. And within that, about 30% of those young people are either in foster care or with extended family members. Often they will be foster carers as well, have been assessed and be foster carers. So I guess we also provide other services. So just very briefly, we provide independent advocacy services in all the mental health units, where young people have access to an independent advocate to support them in their journey through the child and adolescent mental health services, and also in the community in 3 of the areas across Ireland. We have our YAPability service, which works specifically with young people referred from the HSE in relation to primarily autism, but also other issues that affect their capacity to integrate into the community. We also provide support for unaccompanied asylum-seeking children in relation to transport, and to separated children in relation to integration support and independent advocacy. So we've quite a few strings to our bow. But tonight I'm particularly going to talk, I suppose, around the services that we provide to young people who are within the care system. And the bulk of our referrals come from TUSLA, the Child and Family Agency, which everybody here will be very familiar with. And I guess they're usually referred to us because of extra support is needed for the young person themselves. Maybe they're acting out or something's happening. They've been very traumatized and they're finding it hard to settle, perhaps in the care system. And so we're often brought in to support foster carers and the young person to actually see what do they want to do, what are their goals, how do they want to get on with what's happened to them, what are the things that they are going to need for the future. And I guess that's really where we play a role in that. Our advocates are an outside adult. They're a one good adult, another adult that the young person and the foster carers or extended family members can have in their lives to try and support that young person. And it's very focused on building community links. So again, it's really about trying to find out, what does the young person want to do? How can we support them to be more confident, to build resilience? And the advocate works with them and their carers on a plan that the young person themselves puts in place. So the young people really decide what are the goals. So as you will all know, often we will get referrals that say things like they have to go back to school, or they have to stop using social media so much, or there's a lot of negatives. It's often referrals, unfortunately, as we know, come through written in a negative way, and we try very hard to turn all of that around into strengths. So the questions we ask are, what are you good at? What do you like to do? What are the things that you would like to achieve over the next 6 months? And then we do a plan with them and their family to actually try and support them to achieve those things. Now, some of those things might be going back to school, or they might be getting involved in an outside activity, but they may have to be at the young person's pace. And so that's, I guess, where we play our role. We're very much a community link because our advocates are all community-based advocates. They're not qualified staff in that they don't have to be qualified staff. So anybody can become a youth advocate. So please feel free. I'll be poaching people, Roisin. So everybody is welcome to apply to become a youth advocate. And we train everybody to work in our model, and then we support them closely with training, etc., while they're working for us. And I guess what some of the things that the young people and parents and carers say about YAP is that for them, it was great to be able to get out of the house. It was somebody that they could talk to who wasn't involved in all the care discussions and family discussions, who was separate, and that it's fun and that they get to new things. And anybody working with young people and children knows that it's very important to be fun as well and have lots of food available for all of the things that we try and involve them in. So I suppose one of the things that we do is a lot of consultation support and participation work. So all of our young people are involved in participation and voice work. And just a few examples from last year, our young people and parents presented to the Mental Health Commission's review on the issues that arose in the child and adolescent mental health system, which all of us are well aware of. And so they were represented there, and they actually presented to the board. We've also been very involved with HIQA, putting together the youth-friendly aspects of the national standards that they intend to roll out. And so again, they came to us looking for groups of young people and parents or carers who'd be willing to be involved in focus groups. And I guess for us, that's really important, because obviously it's great for me to be able to talk. And as you can all tell, I'm good at talking. But it's actually even more important that the young people and their carers get the opportunity to speak directly to power and directly to people who can actually change policy. And that while I can represent their voice at various fora, it's also much more exciting and interesting to hear from the young people themselves. And also for them, it is about building confidence and self-esteem, that they feel listened to. I suppose just to finish up, I guess what one of the things that we see a lot is, and a shout out, I suppose, very much to carers, that we have a lot of extended family members who have young people and children living with them. And we really have a shout out, I think, to the grandparents in particular that we work with. I have a lot of feedback from grandparents and aunts and uncles who are caring for extended family. And again, they do need a huge amount of support. But the important thing is for the young people and the children, they're able to remain within their extended family network. I suppose some of the things that we would see as important for young people in care and their foster carers, and some of your research there, Roisin, would reflect that, is it's really, really important that community services are open to accepting children and young people into clubs, into all these different things. They may not be able to join at the same time as everybody else. There may need to be a little bit of leeway. They might not be able to turn up for every training session, but that they should be accepted the same, and that the people who run those organizations should be need to be open to that and make it accessible. That we really shouldn't be making assumptions that because a child is in care, that any of those things are going to arise either. That, who knows, they may not arise. So every young person and child should be accepted on the basis that they're the same as everybody else. And then, as in any situation, if other adjustments need to be made, that's fine. But it may not be to do with them being in care. There can't be an assumption made that because they're in care, they're going to have certain issues or difficulties. And I think the young people really feel that stigma. I really think they feel that people do think that things about them. And so it's really important for services like ours and all the community services we link people into, that they don't make assumptions, that they give them a chance, they don't ask intrusive questions, and that they have the respect for privacy that means. And that therefore leads to them supporting the foster carers the same as they would with any other parent, where a child might throw a tantrum or not want to go to training on a Saturday morning one week, that they're not treated any differently. Assumptions aren't made. And I guess what I would say last is that we all have a responsibility to welcome and support children and young people and foster carers, both into our own services, but also in the community where we all live. And that we all have that responsibility to those young people, because it does take a village to raise a child. And I think we all play a part in that. And hopefully YAP Ireland play a particular role, because the young people we get the privilege to work with. But actually all of us in YAP Ireland and across all the community services, we all have a role to play in our day-to-day lives as well. So thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you so much, Siobhan. That was so interesting and perfect timekeeping. You're a great role model for the rest of the speakers, because you came in just in time. And I think what you said there really resonated with me around the voice and the participation work. I think that's so important, and probably the foster carers and former foster children as well will agree with you there. The work that you're doing at YAP in terms of, allowing children and young people to reclaim power over their lives, even if it's just simple decisions, simple goals, simple tasks. That really helps with their emotional well-being, and it will help then at home, it will help in school, and it just has an overall positive effect. So thank you so much for that, and hopefully we'll have some questions for you at the end of the session. You'll be delighted to know I just had a quick look at the Q&A, and somebody has already expressed an interest in becoming an advocate. So I'm sure they'll be getting involved, which is absolutely fantastic. And also have some relative foster carers in the group as well, who just put in after the introduction. So you're all very welcome, those of you who I didn't get to at the start. So that brings us to our second speaker. Mike Walsh is a foster carer and sits on the IFCA foster carer subgroup to the IFCA Board of Management. He enjoys supporting his foster children, engaging in local activities and clubs, including their local rugby club, where he is his children's biggest fan on the sidelines. Mike is a team leader with the community substance misuse team, a multidisciplinary team responding to under 18s with substance misuse issues in the Midwest. Mike and his team work with youths, families, and the wider community to lessen the impact of substance abuse. And you're very welcome, Mike. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Danielle. Hopefully I can follow the last speaker, Siobhan, and stay on time. I want to thank IFCA for the invitation to participate on this panel, and with so many experienced professionals in the area of advocating for children and young people. It's nice to see us having a conversation that raises the awareness. When I was offered the opportunity to participate, I didn't give it much thought, because I've always believed that we should all advocate for a better future and make the world a better place. And where should that start? But only with our young people. I'm going to share my experiences of being a foster carer for nearly 18 years. But I guess I need to pay tribute to my wife for leading the way in that regard. And throughout the next 9 minutes, I will mention her a few times. So also by, I suppose, sharing my experiences, I'm hoping to endorse the theme of the week, Growing Hope, Fostering the Future, as I believe a foster care placement can be impactful and positive for all the young people that we work with. So who am I? Over the last 40 years, in the roles of youth worker, prison officer, social care worker, manager of services, they've all, I suppose, surrounded my interest with young people. It's always been challenging to see, and also heartbreaking to see young people going down a spiral of antisocial behaviour or turning to substance misuse when they lack the support of a family network or a community that doesn't judge them or stigmatise them as a bad person. But over 40 years, there has been success stories, and these encourage me and ignite the hope that I can contribute in some way to another young persons, to all the young people realising they have a future. They don't need to be held back by their often difficult past. So in 2006, we had 3 teenagers who were at different stages of adolescence, and my wife Rachel, who is the rock of the family and manages us all, she's listening to the webinar, so I better get this right. She was a stay-at-home mother, and after many years of looking after neighbours and family members' children, I guess we didn't recognise that she was already providing the characteristics of what is, an alternative to care. A safe, nurturing, and happy environment for children to grow is all that we should aspire to. This brought us into conversations with colleagues, and at that time, a friend of ours asked if we should consider, or we would consider, training as private foster carers when private options as alternative to state care were being mentioned back in the early 2000s. A few months later, we did a bit of training around fostering, got to understand what fostering meant, or what it could mean. And whilst I was working with social workers and foster carers and services that responded to place breakdown, Rachel only saw the situation of the child having no home or not being in a safe place. So it didn't take long for the conversation to start around why don't we consider being a foster carer. So off we went, made inquiries. The inquiries turned into the assessments, and then turned into the approval panel. And I think in 2006, early 2006, we were appointed as foster carers. So we started with pre-adoptive placements where we would have newborn babies who were originally given up for adoption, and social workers would work with the families to see if they would, how certain were they that this is the direction they want to go. And by and large, we saw a lot of those early decisions being changed, and even the first child that we had, and we're still in touch with her, and you know, she went home to mum, and they've got a great relationship now, what, 18 years on. At some point we decided, in our madness, that we would take on emergencies, and it was probably because I was working with that age group and with foster placement breakdowns, that we would work with that group. So took teenagers, never as easy as the babies, still a lot of hard work, but I guess 18 years on and 25 plus placements, we're still here to tell the tale. At some point during that, we came across a brother and sister, you know, siblings, came to us 3 years apart, and they're still with us. And for the last 3 years, we've been pursuing their adoption. However, this has shown, in my view, how far child and family-centred decision-making or processes can be the exact opposite to the best interests of the child. We haven't had the best of, I suppose, processes. It's taken so long. But that's, you know, a fight for another day. So a few facts. I borrowed these off of IFCA, and it kind of gives the size of the challenge that faces the state in terms of supports for children in care. At the end of December last year, there's over 5,600 children in the care of the state. 90% of those are in foster care. And at the end of 2020, Q3 in 2023, there was 2,231 general foster carers, 1,009 relative foster carers, and 622 foster placements, or private foster carers. So that's not enough to keep the system going. We need to look at more foster carers and retaining the foster carers that we have with that amount of experience. But also social workers are, you know, moving jobs. They're not staying in the positions. And then you've got unallocated social workers for placements. We've been lucky enough in ours that we had a good few years of consistency around linked workers, but by and large, in the last number of years, it's been quite sporadic. So in my experience, the children who enter this care system often do so in an unplanned way, and the environment they're used to can be, you know, what they're used to. Then the state removes them from the home, and those relationships they had relied on are gone. This can be quite traumatic. The child can fight it, resent the decisions made, and everything can be a fight or flight for them as far as they're concerned. And then adults can be considered the enemy. Those that aren't removed, that, you know, accept that they were in an unsafe home and see the alternative as safer, and settle quicker. There's still the uncertainty of you know, the new home, the new circle. They don't settle automatically, including the foster carers and the family, the new neighbours, and the wider network. That whole transition is, you know, can be a tough experience, and doesn't always work very well. We can't control the length of placements, and this is because the battle is often between social workers and social work departments, the court, birth parents. So it can be quite messy, and we've been involved in quite a few of those. Our you know, experience has been good by and large, but we've always felt that, you know, even with the emergencies and the uncertainties, we found keeping the conversation as honest and accurate as possible always suited better. As a foster carer, there are many uncertainties in our role, and we face them as family. So our own birth family, we would have involved them in the decision making. We wouldn't have done the fostering experience without their involvement. And even though the state approves you to be a carer, they regularly remind you that the child is not yours, but we still cared for them as if they were ours. Sorry. I suppose the overriding aim should be to provide a safe and nurturing environment for the child that responds to their particular needs. And it's hard to know what they are initially, and it takes time. And you don't always get that time to build that relationship and to include them into the community and build that trust. And it is all about the trust. So if they don't trust you, then building connections with their new environment is going to be much tougher. And from somebody who spent a bit of time in England, you know, I'm still considered blowing, even though my family are all from this local community. So in order for us to you know, introduce a stranger into the community, you know, of a ripe young age, that isn't easy. But it takes hard work, it takes planning, it takes short steps. And the community that child is placed into is really their own birthplace. It might be urban, it might be rural. And whilst each has something to offer, it doesn't always offer what the child wants at that time, and does have risks. The workload is on us as foster carers and our family to review the needs of the child from what we see, from what we feel while the child is in our care, and look at how to meet the needs and include them in as much as possible. This does not come naturally, and as carers are busy enough in the world, you're praying the child likes the things that you already have going, but that doesn't always happen. So talking to your local clubs and schools and all the rest is something that we've become used to. So I suppose the answer is, or the question is, there's no easy answer to what should be a supportive community or how it should look like. It's tough enough for those who haven't got care experience to grow up in this modern Ireland. Our society needs to be tolerant and non-judgmental of those who are new to our communities, and each of us needs to embrace being a parent, a teacher, a mentor, coach, or peer support to children placed in foster families, and work harder to create a community that is safe, nurturing, and respectful for all the new members of the care, or for all the members, which will include those in care. So to conclude, our experience of fostering has been positive. We've had a few hiccups along the way, some placements ending early. It did challenge us as a family, but now we have two lovely children who are siblings in our care for the past 16 and 12 years respectively. And we are still, as I said earlier, we're still in touch with the first child that was in our care, which is lovely to see. We've built up strong relationships with our communities, including their schools, their clubs, and the neighbourhood, who know as much as the children want them to know and need them to know. And they also have a good circle of friends. They are looked after and welcomed anytime they meet our neighbours, and are probably better known to our neighbours than us. But each child in foster care deserves a chance to feel safe and have the opportunity to grow. And this does happen, but not without the work of many stakeholders. This week we celebrate foster care, those in our communities that make it possible, and the wonderful children who are who they are as a result of the contribution of the community. Let's work harder to make the fostering easier for everyone, so that more children can have an alternative care option when it's most needed. Let's foster the future. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Mike. That was so interesting. I think I'm so glad this has been recorded, because everything you just said there is so invaluable to prospective carers, and also I suppose for people who are in the game a long time, just to kind of have that sense that everybody's in it together. And so much of what you said related to my own story, so I'm sure it will relate to other people's stories as well. Just before we go on to the next speaker, I just had a quick question for you, if that's okay. You kind of alluded to it there at the end around the neighbours, your birth family, but was there anybody else because 25 years is a long time, and thank you so much to Rachel as well, is that what you said, your wife's name as well, for 25 years is amazing, and the fact that your first foster child, you're still in contact with them, is a testament to the care that you have provided. But was there anybody else in your village throughout that time that really stands out as being supportive of that process, has allowed you to continue doing it for so long?
I think in the early stages, it was probably our own family, because we live in our village, and we've been there for so long as my family and Rachel's family. But everybody we met, and I think it's down to the relationship we had. Our older children would have gone to school, local national school, and then up to the secondary school. So I think that's those relationships that you have. It's easy to introduce, new members of the family. Having babies then is a bit easier. Rachel will be walking down doing a bit of shopping, and people come up and chat, and they'll be all inquisitive and all inquiring as to who's this, and then I had no trouble telling them that no, it's not one of mine. It's a foster child. But yeah, we had to be mindful of how much you tell of somebody's story, because our village, Limerick City, is only 20 minutes away. And there was a couple of occasions where the situation that arose was for the baby to have been taken into care and it was a serious situation. So going back into the communities that baby had been taken from wouldn't have been safe for either of us, either us as a family. So I don't think there was anybody. Our parish has been very good to help us out, and they've been very supportive. And as I said, our two children have both got visual impairments, which makes, I suppose, their transition into sport quite difficult, and they don't get the same opportunities. And in fairness, they've been very good to encourage them to do the rest, and they get on well, and they love it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mike. I'm sure we'll have more
Thank
questions
you.
at the end if we have time. Okay, so on to our next speaker then. We have Maureen Gillespie. Maureen is an ESOL tutor working with unaccompanied minors in the YES project, the Youth Education Service for Refugees and Migrants. The YES project is an education, youth and integration programme in Dublin. She is a foster carer with Tusla's Separated Children's Unit, which is also for unaccompanied minors. Maureen has a foster son long-term in her care who is originally from Afghanistan, and she also fosters children on an emergency basis. So you're very welcome, Maureen, and thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I have never really spoken before, so please bear with me. I've nothing prepared because I was just asked this afternoon, would I come here? But yes, I work with unaccompanied minors and migrant young people. So really, our young people have no village. They arrive in this country, most of them, unless they come under family reunification. So they come to join a family member that's already here. But most of our young people just arrive on their own and they know nobody. So it's a very different situation. And if they're lucky enough to come to our school, the YES project, we have two schools. One is for younger, maybe from 13 upwards. And then the school I work in, the Step Up School, is for older, maybe 16, 17 upwards. And they're both in Dublin 1. And if the young people, because spaces are limited, if they're lucky enough to come to us, then they really find a community. It's great. You see them coming in lost, they don't know anybody. They can barely speak. They can barely look at anybody. And then within a day, they just open up, and it's fantastic to see. But unfortunately, it's only in Dublin that, it's only our school that offers this. And I've been working in the school for about nearly 4 years now, and through the work and seeing the young people, I thought, God, how lovely would it be? Because they've all, most of them, now you never ask them about their journey here, but they will volunteer information. And as you can imagine, it's been a very difficult journey to get here. So I started thinking, how lovely would it be to be able to be the person that they came to when they first arrived and give them a nice bed and nice food. And so I heard the ad on the radio that Tusla were looking for supported lodgings, people to supply supported lodgings. So I applied, and it took a year to be assessed, for the assessment to come through. But all the way through, I was absolutely determined. I was only taking people on emergency basis. I didn't want anybody long-term. I absolutely did not want that. So I started, and I had maybe just for 3 months, 2 months, maybe 2.5 months, I'd have people coming as emergency for 1 night, 2 nights, and that was fine. And then my foster son arrived late at night and left the next morning, and I don't know what happened. Because he couldn't speak a word of English, but there was some connection. And anyway, he has never left, and that's nearly a year and a half ago now. And I can see how he has grown from, arriving in Ireland, knowing nobody, and now has this whole community around him. because he was so lucky. I mean, I was so lucky that he came to me, but he was so lucky because through me, he got a place in the school. He jumped the queue. And just blossomed from there, meeting people, meeting other people from his community. And now he has a huge network, not just of his own community, not just Afghan people, but, other students that he became friendly with. And through playing football, he's met people from other countries. And the one thing he doesn't have, and I know lots of our young people find it so hard to meet Irish young people and to make connections with Irish young people. But yeah, I suppose I can actually feel a bit emotional about it because of the climate there is now. And I see our young people and they are so vulnerable, but a lot of them, we work with mainly Afghan and Somali young people, and most of the Afghans are young boys because the journey here is so horrendous. A girl couldn't do it. I mean, they literally walk here from Afghanistan, and they face such violence along the way. But then to see the way the media, or not the media, sorry, but the way the country has changed, and all this talk about, these single men. And I'm looking at these young fellas that they, sometimes their eyes fill with tears because somehow, maybe nothing has come up, but because they think of their mother, or the mother, the word, my name in Pashto, my name is Maureen, and Mor is mother in Pashto. So sometimes even that, they'll just start telling you that, and then their eyes will fill with tears, and they'll say, I haven't seen my mother in 5 years, 3 years, but these are, if they're, lots of them are under 18, but the state doesn't accept that they're under 18. So they're living in adult accommodation and can be transferred at any time, which happens a lot, that we would have kids coming in so engaged in the school, and the next thing they're gone and they've been transferred down the country where there is nothing for them. Whereas, because most of them, they just really love education. They are so proud when they get their document from the minister to say that they're allowed to remain, and they think now they're Irish, and they just love Ireland, really so proud to be in Ireland and so positive about Ireland. But yes, as I say, the school, if they're lucky enough to come to our school, it's the beginning of the community for them. And it really brought it home to me because the last group of students left, my foster son was one of them, left in December. And in January, a few of them were coming back into the school for various things. And the first girl I met, a Somali girl, who'd been very quiet in the class. And anyway, I walked in and she was there. And she just said, "Teacher, I miss you so much." And she just started sobbing. And she had been so reserved in the class. But and I knew she missed the school because she had nothing in her life now. There was nothing. She was just in her hotel room, in sharing, a room somewhere with nothing to do all day. And then a few days later, a Somali boy came in and he hugged me. He said, "Teacher, I have to hug you." And for Somali boys to hug you is not, it's very unusual. But he said, "I miss you all so much," and it really brought home to me. They don't kind of realize when they're there, they're like typical teenagers, and they're on their phones and they're not, chatting to their friends and not listening to their teacher. But they don't realize till it's taken away, that's what they had in their life, the structure, the friendships, everything. So anyway, that's my my offering.
Maureen, that was so powerful. Honestly, that was really, really touching.
Oh, sorry, because honestly, I find I sometimes find it overwhelming, you know,
Imagine just hearing
because
you.
of the current climate as well, and the demonization of, you know, these young, vulnerable men that want nothing more than to be part of a community. And also I was thinking that when we're talking, or you know, the theme about coming from a village, or, you know, the support of a village to raise a child. And I was thinking that of them all coming here and knowing nobody, but yet they all come from, or most of them would come from countries where community is so important. It's everything. Their, you know, extended family is everything to them. And their friends. And then they come here and, you know, have to start again. So the resilience of these, I mean, children or young people, you know, I should say young people, because the school, sorry, I've probably gone over my time. You were right. I have to stop now. Sorry.
No, absolutely not. I think though, just to say, Maureen, what really came through with your story there was, you know, that often research highlights the importance of one particular person, one advocate in your corner, one person who loves you unconditionally, who will fight for you. And it's so clear that you are that for so many people. But also the other side of research and practice, and the theme for tonight is that it takes a village. But actually, if you're lucky enough to have two of those, where you have one strong person who can introduce you to a strong village,
Yes. Yeah.
it just makes such a world of difference for people. And I think what you've highlighted this evening as well is that, you know, foster care, general mainstream foster care is so complex, but when you add those layers and that intersectionality of marginalization and, you know, people losing an entire culture and village and everything, it's very, very difficult. So thank you for speaking so articulately and bravely and sharing your story with us. I think on behalf of us all, I found it very touching anyway.
Oh,
and I
thank
know
you.
that you
Thank you.
might need to leave a little bit early.
Yes, I can come back, but I'm just going to switch my camera off, and yeah.
That's no problem. Just because I imagine that we will have questions for you maybe at the end. So if
Okay,
you
I leave the mic running. So okay, thank you.
so much,
Thank
Maureen.
you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so our next speaker then is Maria O'Connell. Maria, you're very welcome. And Maria is a principal of St. Finian's Co-Educational National School in Finglas. 7 years ago, the school became part of a multi-agency project called Better Finglas, led by Barnardo's, which aims to improve outcomes for young children and their families living in Finglas. The project includes a trauma-informed learning network and nurture schools, of which St. Finian's National School is one. Maria has led a process of change in the school in a move to a trauma-informed and attachment-focused approach to promoting relationships, safety, learning, and belonging in the school. You're very welcome, Maria.
Hi, thanks a million. I might just show some of the slides from our PowerPoint, but thanks for the introduction. And yes, 7 years ago when I became principal, you know, we were seeing a high level of behavioural issues and children experiencing a high number of ACEs, so adverse childhood experiences, and we said, okay, we have to do something. So working with Better Finglas and our educational psychologists, we looked at the research of becoming what we would like to say is a relationship-informed school rather than a trauma-informed school, because our focus is on relationships. And
Maria, can I just interject to you for 1 second? Your sound is just slightly off, and I'm just wondering maybe if you turn your camera off, we might be able to hear you a little bit better.
yeah, I don't know if that's any better.
I think it might be slightly better.
Yeah.
Keep going maybe, and we'll see how we get on. Sorry for interrupting you. I just want to make sure everybody hears what you're saying, because I know it's going to be very important.
No problem. So just, yeah, working on becoming a trauma or a relationship informed school. And that's where our quest for Nurture came about. So we're one of the, you know, Nurture accredited schools, and we do a lot of work with Nurture Ireland and Nurture International. So I don't know if somebody can just show the slideshow that we have, just to show some of the work that we do in St. Finian's. So when we started looking into the work, the research behind the work we're doing, a lot of it was working with animals, working with nature, and working on relationships and emotion coaching. So that's what we do a lot of. Sorry, I don't know who was going to show the slideshow.
Sharon, is Sharon on?
Catherine is going to put the slides up.
Great,
Maybe
sorry,
just take a
sharing.
second. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
So we've lots of different initiatives that we run in the school, which you'll hopefully see in a minute. I'll just keep going. If you can't, it's fine. We have our reading dog TED. So all of these initiatives really help our kids with their emotional regulation and, you know, building positive relationships. So we pick our most, you know, children with who are scoring the highest number of ACEs, and they would go and read with our reading dog every week, and it's been a real positive to our school. I should say we've had a numerous foster placements over the years, so I'm happy to take any questions on a school's perspective on how we've helped ensure that it's been a positive transition, because some have been a lot more positive than others. And I think when we did find that out, we were able to help in the right way. Another project which we run is our equine project. So every week we take 6 of these kids out to horse riding, and again it was just to promote our relationships with our horses, building empathy, building trust with that one positive adult, but also with the one positive animal. So they're becoming, you know, they get to know their horse. They want, you know, it's choosing the same horse every week, so they're building that relationship. They're building that trust. They're building that responsibility of the care element, caring for something else or caring for another animal. It's been a huge success, and we're seeing the success this year. It's taken a few years to get every project up and running, but we're seeing the academic success this year, where in the past it has just, you know, been focused on the actual managing of emotions. But this year we're seeing like a huge increase of reading ages, of increase in their actual learning. They can now access the learning because their emotions are regulated, and they have the tools to regulate their own emotions, which has been massive for us. As you see, if somebody does show the slides, you can see then our incubation project with our chicks, and our that was our first year doing that this year, and that's been great for just learning and again care for something and to see something grow and develop. Then I'm moving on to our nurture program. So our nurture program, like I said, was just a vital tool for our school anyway, where we have a whole room and a whole teacher dedicated to this, and we've now spread it across the school. So all our learning support take nurture groups. So as well as having a full-time nurture teacher, nurture classroom, all our learning support have nurture groups, and we've brought nurture into the classroom. So every teacher has nurture stations in the morning, and they all have a nurture area in their classroom. So no matter where you're coming from, no matter how dysregulated your child comes, they know straight away they're going into their nurture stations in every classroom with every teacher every day. So it's extremely calm, it's extremely beneficial to have every child settle into school life. And then after that, we've ensured they've had some breakfast if they needed it, some downtime, some regulation time, some playtime, then they're ready to access the curriculum. The next slide too will also show my sensory corridors and sensory spaces. I've mentioned them a little bit there. So again, movement and space we found really beneficial for all kids experiencing any sort of trauma. So again, the whole body work has been vital for the development of practice for any child with developing, you know, with ACEs to develop their own regulation. And we do breath work every morning over our intercom, and that's something the parents have said to us is massive, because it's a tool they can use at home, teaching rainbow breathing, belly breathing, butterfly breathing, bumblebee breathing. And every child leads this on the intercom, so it's the child's voice being heard. And the parents could do this over COVID, and the parents are still doing it now. So so that has been huge for us. The breath work, along with our positive affirmation. As Dr. Danielle was saying, the one positive adult, we also see the benefit of the positive affirmation, so the positive self-talk and self-thought. And the benefit of writing it down for our kids. So every day we would, because it takes, for every one negative thought, it takes 5 positive thoughts to override that one negative. So if the child is writing these positive affirmations down, they're rereading their own positive affirmations, and then they're adding to them. So we do that every morning as well with every child, and they have their own journal that they decorate, they take pride in, and that's been really powerful. And within our nurture, you know, you see on my slides things like celebrating birthdays, the concept of a family. Again, we've all blended families in the school. No family is one size fits all. So, I mean, it's just to celebrate the child, to celebrate where they're coming from. Again, always starting off, checking in, where are they at, to regulate themselves, identify their own emotions, name them. And they're, you know, they're an advocate for their own sensory regulation, really. They know where the safe spaces in the school are. They have that assigned adult if they need help. So they will all be assigned an adult. So that one key adult is the person who will deal with any emotional outbursts, should there be any. You know, it's not just the teacher on the yard, but you know, we would go and look for their one trusted adult to help deal with that situation. And we have seen just such a de-escalation in any escalation. So I mean, the work has taken years to get up and running, but we're really seeing the benefits this year. And again, together, everyone achieves more. That's the way we operate. You know, we're all working together. We're a real team. I think working with the parents, helping them, has been really powerful. My last slide, you'll just see just a little girl touching one of the horses, and she said to me after 4 weeks, you know, I feel safe here. This child, when we started the Equine Project, she wouldn't come into the yard where the horses were. She wanted to be outside. She looked at the birds, might play in the puddles. As the weeks went by, she'd come and she'd just rub the horse. Then she started then to brush the horse, and you'll see me then, she's riding a horse with me. I mean, it's just, you know, and they feel so empowered themselves. But it took us a long time to get there, you know, remaining calm in every difficult situation, working with NEPS very closely. We used to use the psychological first aid steps, which they would use for the children in the Ukraine, and it was just look, listen, link. So you'd look at what's going on, you'd listen to what was going on, and you'd link it for the child. So to explicitly teach all this and to link it was really important too. And just the last slide is just a voice of one of our parents at the moment. I'll just read it for you. Every morning when I go to wake Em up to bring him to school, he's so excited and always has a big smile on him going to school. It should be noted that he would need to wake up at least 1 hour earlier than he used to. This is when he lived closer to school. This is because the different activities, initiatives, and educational approaches taken by the school, from the welcome committee at the school gates every morning to the kindness and empathy demonstrated by the teacher, special needs assistants, and the nurture teacher, and also other members of the school team who are involved in the running of the school and behind the scenes. St. Finian's for him is his anchor, and he feels very safe in the school. This is important for a child who's in care and has gone through so many changes in such a short period of time. The school is helping him to build his resilience levels. The rewarding system that they have in place in school is very good and keeps him motivated and always trying to do his best. I can see a positive change in him since he started school. His focus is now more on what he is learning, discovering, and experiencing. The Chicks activity was amazing for him. His questioning was at a different level. All this work done by the school is translating to his day-to-day life, e.g. testing new foods, he's interested in learning a new language, he's more confident, and he's living in the present more. As foster parents, the school has been very accommodating and supportive. They have demonstrated that they have a genuine interest in Em and they care very much about him, which is very important for us. Last year, the nurture teacher invited me to the nurture room and went through the program in detail. So it helped me to have a better understanding of what they are working on so we can improve our skills and our knowledge and better support Em with his social, emotional, and learning needs. I think that just kind of sums it all up, really. You know, we meet them where they're at. We don't focus on the learning. We focus on everything else, and the learning will come. And that's what we would try and say to any foster parent. You know, make sure you go to your school. You know, try and get information from the past school for your new school, because that's really important for us, or it's really important for me to pass on to a school if a child is transitioning, and to put the proper supports in place.
Thank you so much, Maria. That was so interesting. I'm sorry that there was a technical glitch with your slides there, but I'm delighted that we figured it out because they really are so lovely for the audience to get a sense of what you're talking about. I know there was some people in the chat looking to see if it was possible to get a copy of those slides. And it's not possible to get them as they are, I believe, because of GDPR issues, but perhaps Maria, you could talk with IFCA about maybe anonymizing some of them and or sending just the ones of the spaces perhaps. Because it would be great just to, because there's nothing to stop people going to their own schools, I guess, and just, you know, I mean, obviously this would be a huge overhaul for some schools, but certain aspects of it, and, you know, there's no such thing, no intervention I think is too small to make a big difference in children's lives. As you were talking there, as the mother of a neurodivergent child, I was thinking, could I relocate to Finglas? You know, could I find a job there? Because I'm sure I wasn't on my own. It's such an invaluable resource. And I think, again, you know, that whole idea of stability, predictability, it's so important for children in foster care. And but also the postcode lottery, I think, has come through a few of the speakers this evening, that, you know, sometimes it comes down to being really lucky to, you know, to have such a fantastic school in your local area. So thank you for that, Maria. That was really, really interesting. And again, we'll take questions for Maria at the end when we have time, if that's okay with everybody. So we will move on to our next speaker now, which is Alan Costello. So Alan is a native of Roscrea in County Tipperary, now living and working in County Kildare, where he is the Music Development Officer for Music Generation Kildare. Music Generation is a national organisation whose objective is to provide access to performance music education to every young child in the country. Alan is an award-winning musician encompassing Irish traditional music, classical, choral, music theatre and pop and rock. And prior to his time with Music Generation Kildare, worked internationally as a ballet pianist and pedagogue, focusing on improvisation, collaborative musical performance and a holistic and socially conscious approach to music education, with a strong focus on the personal development of the musician as a social citizen through their development as a performing musician. So thank you so much for being with us this evening, Alan, and over to you.
Thanks very much. Just, I suppose, my first thing is I feel very humbled because while I know we make a difference in the community, it's definitely not at the same level as the other panel members speaking here tonight. So I do have to take my hat off to IFCA, Roisin, and all of yourselves, the wonderful work you're doing. Just, I suppose, from my point of view, it does kind of tie in with a lot of the themes that seem to be popping up here this evening, from the point of Music Generation and what we do across the country. But just to give a bit of a quick background to Music Generation, it was set up 13 years ago by U2 and the Ireland Funds, on the basis that there was no national access to performing music within the community in Ireland the same way that there possibly is in other European countries. We do have a very strong musical tradition in this country, but it's very much dependent on there being a local practitioner. If you grow up in Clare, you will have your pick of phenomenal traditional Irish musicians. If you're living in Clare and you happen to be into death metal or hip hop, your chance might bypass you. So I suppose Music Generation was set up to try and correct this to some extent, or at least start the process of correcting it. It was rolled out in one county, in Donegal initially, and it proved to be a great success. So it has since rolled out, and there is a Music Generation in every county in Ireland at the moment. I think the last one is to come on board is Cork County, but there is one in Cork City. So it's what we do very briefly and is provide access to children and young people across the country to music in a non-curriculum basis. And I suppose two things within our approach that I think I just want to kind of touch on tonight, which I think will resonate with everybody here, is that we don't do one-to-one tuition. We deliver small and large group music tuition that does not have an assessment focus, an examination focus. It is purely, as we talk about, it's like learning to speak a language. You learn to speak a language as a young person from the point of view that you need to communicate. And as your communication needs increase, you develop a greater vocabulary. You have an ability to express yourself. You've an ability to communicate. And for us, that is done in the same way that a language is taught to a young person. It is done and delivered in small group and large group kind of classes. So this kind of traditional concept, and there is nothing wrong with it, but I think this concept of putting a child into a room to practice their piano until they're able to play, and then wheeling them out once a year for their exam and they do exceptionally well, and then putting them back into the room until the next exam, is similar from my perspective to putting a 3-year-old into a room to learn how to speak, and they only get wheeled out when they're able to communicate. And as a community and a society, we don't do that. We encourage children and young people to be part of those adult conversations. We communicate with them. We celebrate their successes. They don't feel that or fear failures by kind of pronouncing words wrong or getting their sentences wrong or mixing up words. They're kind of celebrated and their voice is heard. So that for us, I suppose, in one line is that around that sense of community of practice, that we deliver kind of school programs, which are whole class programs, but the richness of our work, I suppose, happens out of school, where we would have small group tuition, where 4 to 5 minimum children would come together, age appropriate, to learn violin, keyboard, choral, vocal, whatever it is that these local musicians can provide, with then a focus on developing a community of practice, developing their social skills, developing their interpersonal skills, developing their confidence. The other big thing for us, and I do have to actually add, is that, like, because there's a different music development officer in every county has a slightly different approach depending on the size of the county, the needs, the interests of kind of young people within each county. But for us in Kildare, we have a strong focus on music as, I suppose, as a non-verbal communication method, which I think definitely kind of resonates with non-national children and young people being in care, because they talk about putting a young child into a social environment where English is not their first language. We've got a lot of feedback from our schools is that the subjects where they excel generally are mathematics and the arts, because everybody is learning a new language when you sit down with an instrument in your lap. And it's a wonderful opportunity for them to be able to have the playing field leveled, so to speak. Now, I will hold my hat up to sport within this country, because they've done an absolutely phenomenal job. What I will, I suppose, take it is that sport is not for everyone. There is something really nice about Music Generation and the model that it is nationwide, that there is an alternative collaborative endeavor where young people can get involved in a non-judgmental way. Sport is wonderful. The bottom line with sport, though, is that however you look at it, it is always going to be competitive. And there will always be that person who is not as good as the other people on their team. And it takes a very astute kind of set of adults within that group to kind of foster that environment, so they don't feel alienated or don't feel that they've let their teammates down. Music especially is one of those things that the whole is always greater than the sum of the parts. So we have a very kind of musicking approach to what we do. We see the person who is turning the pages as being important to the process as the person who's playing the instrument. We see the person who's welcoming people coming in the door as being part of the performance. It is celebrated rather than being kind of differentiated. We do, I suppose, from our point of view as well, we would look really strongly at music being a really strong form of self-expression, creative expression. and young people being heard. So I suppose this goes beyond music, is that we had a very interesting conversation with a school teacher during the year where she said the classes are going really well, but the musician educator, when he comes in, he spends at least 5 or 10 minutes just kind of talking to the children. Like, it'd be better if he just got them learning. And I said, but we can't expect them to have their musical voice heard and their musical voice being important if we don't hear the stories. So every story that's told, we got a cat, my mammy's up in Dublin today, oh, this happened to me yesterday. Those stories are as important from the point of view of their voice being heard, building self-confidence, building this model where they feel that what they have to say is important, and therefore what they have to play is important. We had one other school which is really interesting and similar to the kind of the whole approach in St. Finian's in Fingal. We had one very interesting school where they said that they had 2 autistic children in the class. They said, and they've noticed that the autistic children, when they feel that things are becoming too much, the teacher said, we've had a chat, and they know that they can remove themselves from the class. They can go back down to the bottom of the class. They can take out their ukulele. They can play away for a couple of minutes. They musically vent. They musically express themselves. There's the sonorities and the tones of the music, she said, just has such a calming effect on them. The other big thing, and I know I'm just running towards the end of my time here, the other big thing I have to say we have noticed is post-COVID, the ability of children and young people to be involved in listening and active listening within small group and large group tuition, where in order for them to function as a group, they have to take responsibility for their own performance, their own musicking, but they also have to listen to other people in the group. They have to listen to the person beside them. They also have to take responsibility for peer-to-peer learning, helping the person beside them when they're maybe not getting, in a really positive kind of way that we talk it kind of critiquing. So they give one thing that the other person maybe can work on, and 2 things they did really, really well. So similar to that idea of 1 negative thought and 5 positive affirmations. There is, I suppose, there's that thing for us, is that we're only maybe 13 years old at the moment. We are around the country. It is an opportunity, I suppose, within the foster care community and with IFCA, as I've kind of said to Roisin before, to reach out to Music Generation in your area, explain the situation. We are funded by the Department of Education and at a local level by the county councils and the ETBs. Our programs are not free, they're heavily subsidised, but I would say to any parent and to IFCA as well, were you to reach out to an music development officer, Music Generation, and want to be involved, then I think there is no Music Generation development officer around the country who would not do everything within their power to make that accessible. And I'm
so sorry, I have to interject there because we're running out of time.
No problem.
There have been a couple of questions for you in relation to how old children have to get involved.
0 to 18.
Is there a website or an email address that you could maybe say out, and then people could go there for
musicgeneration.ie is the national website, and all the contact details for all the Music Generation development offices in all the counties are up on the page. And if you email them directly, they'll be able to put you in contact with anybody. It is 0 to 18, but I do know there are counties around the country who do intergenerational programs as long as there are children involved.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Alan, for that really comprehensive overview. It was fantastic. So that brings us to our final speaker of the evening, last but very definitely not least, Shona Cunningham. So Shona currently works as a fostering staff officer at Tusla Child and Family Agency. In this role, coordinating administration and support to a dynamic social work team dedicated to providing care and protection for children and families. Driven by a passion for improving the lives of individuals who have experienced care, Shona is delighted to contribute as a member of the Care Experienced Expert Panel for the DCD Care Experiences Project. This longitudinal research project, endorsed by the Ryan Report, holds great significance as we work towards positive change, and we're delighted to have Shona here to tell us more about that this evening. Welcome, Shona.
Thanks very much. Good evening, everybody. So I'm Shauna. I'm deeply honoured to have this opportunity to share my story with you today, particularly as we come together to celebrate Fostering Awareness Week. Many of you will recognise me as an advocate for the Care Experience Project. I'm only short of having it tattooed on my forehead. But for those of you who may not be familiar with this project, I encourage you to explore further on gov.ie by searching for Care Experience. However, today I'm actually here to just as an advocate, as somebody who has lived through the challenges and triumphs of the care system. 10 years ago this month, I left the care system, marking a significant milestone in my journey. But even before I entered care, the foundations of the community support was already being laid in my life. It's often said that it takes just one adult to change a child in care's life, as we've heard several times this evening. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous. And I can attest to the truth of that statement. One adult to see beyond the labels and stereotypes, to recognise the child is a human and is deserving of love and support. Growing up, I was no stranger to adversity. My family was caught in the grip of alcohol misuse, a circumstance that cast a long shadow over my childhood. From a young age, I found myself thrust into the role of a caregiver for my 3 younger sisters. Despite the challenges we faced, those moments spent nurturing them still remain my most cherished moments and memories now. But amidst the chaos and uncertainty, there were glimmers of hope, acts of kindness that illuminated through the darkness of our situation. I still remember the first time our neighbours knocked on our door with food. A simple yet profound gesture of compassion that touched me deeply. It's been over 20 years, but the memory of that act of kindness still warms my heart. In school too, the supports continued. Our primary school provided us with leftover lunches and milk, never once making us feel ashamed of our circumstances. Then there were those individuals like Jude and Olive who were our home help support at the time, whose impact my life transcends words. Jude, who patiently taught me to read despite the challenges I faced in keeping up with school. I was in 5th class and I couldn't read. I was out of school a lot because I had to care for my sisters, so keeping up with my studies was particularly challenging. But Jude never gave up on me. She took the time out of her day and was so patient with me, installing in me love for learning that continues to this day. I'll never forget Jude and her love for Tyrone. I still see her now, 15 years on, cycling on her bike, and a reminder of her kindness that changed my life. And then there was Olive, who generously knew no bounds. I still remember the day I came home from school to find my shoes 2 sizes too small for me, my toes poking out from the worn out fabric. It was Olive who came to my rescue, not just with new shoes, but with so much more. She took me under her wing, treating me as if I was her own, from buying me new pumps for school to offering a listening ear when I faced bullying. Olive's kindness knew no bound. But it wasn't just teachers and neighbours and foster carers who made a difference in my life. It was a whole community, from youth clubs to home help supports. Their collective acts of kindness, though seemingly small to them, were monumental in shaping my journey. As I reflect on my own experiences, I am filled with gratitude for those who have extended a helping hand when I needed it the most. It truly does take a village to raise a child, especially one in care. It takes one adult to believe in you, to teach you, to support you and encourage you, but it takes a village to transform a life. And for that, I am eternally grateful. So thank you very much.
It's not often I'm speechless, but I feel a little bit, yeah, I feel quite emotional after listening to you, Shauna. Thank you so much for sharing your story so generously. And it's not easy to share some of those stories sometimes. So I really appreciate, I'm sure everybody else really appreciates your honesty. And again, I just think it's absolutely amazing, the theme that has emerged this evening around. I mean, I wonder about Judy, was it? And Olive, whether they know.
Jude, yeah.
Jude, yeah. So do you know?
I actually don't know if they do.
Yeah, I bet you they don't
Sorry,
know to the extent to the impact that
but
they've
it's
had.
the little things. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's
It's
like
just
what
the little
Alan.
things, and that's why I was very happy. Yeah. Sorry.
No, absolutely not. No. I was just going to say that Alan started his talk by saying, oh, compared to everybody else, I'm not really sure what difference I make. And somebody else said earlier on around, you know, Maria mentioned that, you know, after all the hard work over the last few years, now we're starting to see the results. And I think that sums up foster care. You know, you're planting these seeds, you're sowing the seeds, you're caring, you're cultivating, and then it's much later. You have wonderfully successful people like you, and successful in your own right. I mean, not because of education, but the fact that you are, you know, confident and you feel like you have a positive outcome, who are able to share these stories. And I think it's so inspiring for particularly foster carers maybe at the start of their journey, who have very challenging placements or who are witnessing for the first time the pain and the trauma and the rejection and all of those other things. So I think what you're doing and the story that you're sharing is so invaluable and so inspiring. And thank you so much for sharing it this evening.
Thanks for having me.
I mean, this has just been a really amazing evening. What a privilege to be part of these discussions. Because we were so interested in everybody, we don't have a lot of time for questions. Roisin, I'll let the decision with you. We do have some really interesting questions in the discussion, so I'm happy to stay. And if the panel members are happy to stay for a few extra minutes and we get through a few of them, or I don't know if we're on a tight time.
You know what? We have a minute. We have a minute to deadline, and I think we can maybe push it out another couple of minutes, because honestly, I just feel having all of you around the table and what's been discussed this evening, it just feels really special. I'd hate to call time limit too soon. So maybe we can take just a handful of questions, maybe three questions or so, and we'll see where we are then, if that's okay. Thanks, Danielle.
Yeah. No problem at all. So there's some really interesting questions coming in, a couple around identity. So we might ask those questions if that's okay. So Siobhan, there was a question for yourself around identity. So somebody said, our foster child is with us 7 years now. For the last couple of years, he is adamant he wants to use our surname. He is very aware of his life story and that on legal documents, his birth surname is used. However, in school in particular, he insists on signing his name using our surname. He's 11. And a similar question was put in for Mike, where how do you deal with the confusion when a child wants to call you mommy and daddy, but has, you know, so lots of questions around negotiating, navigating language and terms and labels, I suppose. So maybe Siobhan, if we'll come to you first, and then Mike, if you want to come in at that point.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I suppose from my point of view and our point of view, you know, you're led by the child and the young person. You know, as long as they understand the context, I think, you know, you're led by them. They understand their life story, but obviously for them it's important that at that stage of their life, whatever they're at, that they want this to be their surname. And I would say the same about somebody calling you mom and dad. Often we work with young people and they'll say, this is Mammy 1 and that's Mammy 2, or this is my mammy that I see, you know, every month or whatever, but this is my mammy who looks after me every day. So I think you have to be led by the young people. Obviously your social worker and TUSA should be supportive of that. And I think we over problematize sometimes. I think we think, oh, that's going to be bad. But actually, if we're led by the young person and the child, they may change their mind in the future, and then you have to take that as well. But when it comes to those sorts of issues, I think you should be led by the young person and the child, as long as they understand the context as best they can. And as I say, they may change their mind. Identity is one of those things that changes a lot during adolescence and young adulthood, and that's okay as well, as long as you're strengths-based. It should be strengths-based about them, rather than as an adult we can sometimes over problematize things. So that would be my take, but I'm not sure that all the experts would agree with you would agree with me.
Thank you, Siobhan. And Mike, do you have any response?
Exactly. You know, Siobhan's the nail on the head. You have to be respectful. Identity. It came up in our family, but more so with the long-term placements when they got a little bit older, and especially around our oldest, who was adamant that he was going to, you know, he even Googled how to change his name by deed poll. He was so adamant. So, you know, we had to negotiate with him. We never stopped him, but I suppose my wife Rachel was the brains, and said to each of them that whatever you're happy with and comfortable with, you've got 2 mothers, 2 fathers, and that conversation started early, so there was no kind of problem in our house, but it can be contentious. All our official documents have to be the legal name, but in school, it's the problem when they want to be, they want to be the same, that they're identified as being a member of our family, so they want to follow our surname. So going to school, it can be quite a challenge. So it can become quite difficult unless you address it. If you ignore it, it's going to bite you in the ass.
Absolutely. And I know it's something that came up in my own research, where I had a young person who went by her her foster carer's surname, but on all her official documents, her birth surname. She lost her bus pass, and she was so distressed for a few days while that was lost, in case the people in school saw the different surnames, and how would she explain that? How would she, all her friends would think. So it's such a complicated scenario. But I think the advice you gave, Siobhan, is really healthy advice, to listen to the child, their will and preference, and given consideration to that. Sean, I just want to let you know that a lovely comment has just come into the chat saying, wow, Sean, I'm moved to tears. If ever I needed motivation to keep going, I'll think of you. So thank you for that. And I think well said, I echo that as well. So thank you for that. If there's any other questions, I'm just looking through. Siobhan, just to come back to you as well, in relation to if somebody does want to become an advocate, is there a website that they can go to find out more information?
My mouse wouldn't move. Yes, indeed, there's www.yapireland.ie. And I was going to say as well, there's lots of great creative work on there from the young people and families that we work with. Because I think, going back to what Alan said, creativity and language that may not be spoken. And we all know that, working with young people, that sometimes you do things beside them. Whereas that one, looking them in the face can be quite hard for them. And so there's a lot of work up there that they've done over the years, and that they're very, very proud of, which is about their voice on topics that are of interest to them. So certainly, yapireland.ie. And can I just say as well, Shauna, thank you so much for sharing. And we facilitate and try and support our young people, as and carers, to speak all the time. And I know it's not easy, but it's so important to hear your voice as an expert. And I think that acknowledgement of the kindnesses that people do. Sometimes we have staff and families who say, oh, well, nothing has really changed, and you're 5 months, and and I always say, oh, you don't know what has changed yet. You don't know the impact that you've already made and the sparks that you've lit. Sometimes you don't see that for a period of time, but we know from the outcomes that the young people achieve that actually they are going to do amazing. Because of the support they've been given, not just by us, but by all those other people who get involved and support them. So I think that's a lovely thing, Shauna, that you brought out there, that sometimes we don't even know those small individual kindnesses that make a huge difference, because it builds hope.
Yeah.
We have to remember
does,
lots of the time our young people and their families are very hopeless, and we have to rebuild hope. And that's really important.
Thank you, Siobhan. And just the final question, I think, just given the time, to you, Maria, if that's okay. Lots of people wondering if you can explain what the reading dog is, and how can we all get one?
So we have a volunteer who brings Ted into our school every week, and he's trained by the organisation to read, as in he'll help a child pick a book, he'll help them, give them nudges, but really, again, it's that one adult that we pick, children who need to, have that one positive adult and the one positive dog. So, I mean, the relationship is incredible with both, and it's not about the reading at all. It's often the chat with the volunteer and Ted.
Absolutely. And I think we can't underestimate the impact of animals and pets and all of those things. So I think we might have to close the questions now. I guess if anybody does have any other questions, you could direct them to Catherine or Roisin at IFCA, and maybe the panel speakers would be happy to answer them through email. If anybody has any questions for me, I'm certainly happy to do that. And just to say finally, thank you all so much again. As somebody who grew up in care, like I said at the beginning, I had 8 different moves. These are my favorite type of sessions. I go to academic conferences, research conferences, and don't get me wrong, they're all very interesting, but you never get the level of insight and experience and practical suggestions and sense of community and togetherness and peer support than you do at these types of events. So I just want to say thank you all so much for the work that you're doing for my fellow care brothers and sisters coming up behind me, and for all the young people currently in care in Ireland. It's not an easy thing to do, and you're all to be commended in the various aspects of work that you're doing. So thank you very much. Roisin, I'll hand it over to you to close.
Thanks so much, Danielle. I couldn't put it any better, but I have to say, Alan, I am absolutely the one that is humbled here this evening. It's been such a pleasure, and just sincere and heartfelt thanks to all of you for taking part on the panel, for sharing your stories and your experiences with us here tonight. It's really meant a lot. I couldn't have wished for a better start off for Fostering Awareness Week, and we really wanted to convey that sense of community and to highlight all the amazing people who are out there in our fostering community and those who support them. And I'm just delighted and appreciate your time, and it's been a lovely evening, and thanks for being here with us. And please keep in touch, as Danielle said. Get in touch with us if you have a question that you haven't answered, and we'll absolutely do our best to either direct it on or provide you with more information. So we're always there at the end of the email. And please do as well, if you can keep up, you're on the Twitter and all of that, as I'm not myself, but keep an eye out for our fostering awareness events over the course of the week. We'd love to see you, and we'd be delighted with your support. So thank you so much. Have a lovely evening, everyone, and all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Best of luck for the rest of the week, Roisin. I'll be keeping an eye on all the activities.
Thanks so much, Danielle. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Danielle.
Night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.